Good evening and welcome to a very special episode of Trending at 10 p.m. I'm Vishnu Shom. For millions of users in India and indeed across the world, Facebook and WhatsApp is a way of life. It's an essential form of communication for so many. In fact, if you look at the numbers, they are staggering. Over 200 million Indian users for WhatsApp, over 241 million Indians are on Facebook. But there are huge challenges as well when it comes to the use of social media. There are dangers on social media, whether it is fake news, whether there are attempts at morphing pictures, at threatening people, at abusing people. And then, of course, there are huge benefits as well, which we all know about, and on how information can be shared very positively. Joining us this evening, a very special guest. Antigone Davis is the global head of safety at Facebook. Remember, Facebook owns WhatsApp as well. And she's promised to try and answer all of our questions. Thanks very much for joining us here at NDTV. Just about half an hour back, I just went on to Facebook. I did a random search because there was a news clip which came in that there was a fake video on Facebook which was doing the rounds. The video apparently showed Kashmiris being shot by police. Now, the fact is, this was actually a police drill in the state of Jharkhand. People actually fell down, but they were acting. Nobody was killed. But then when messages like this go around, and this was on Facebook, in fact, just till a little while back, it may still be there, it creates panic. What can you do to try and fix that?
Well, first of all, we take these issues really seriously. We want people to be using our platform as a way of building community, bringing people closer together, and making sure that the information that they're exchanging is in fact, of course, here we're, in this case, you want to make sure it's accurate. One of the things that we're doing is working with third-party fact checkers to actually provide that kind of fact checking for stories like that. In my work, we've heard similar issues with things like suicide content, and we'll hear there was something called the Blue Whale Challenge. I think we had it here in India as well, and what was very interesting is that when we looked at that content internally, there wasn't actually this challenge in widespread use, but yet it was being reported as in widespread use. And it was very important to us because of that contagion risk to really try to get ahead of that. And so we worked with our suicide prevention experts to get out information to people, to let them know that, in fact, let them know about the challenge, what they needed to do to keep their children safe, and also to make it really clear that there wasn't this widespread use, and to make sure that people didn't go into panic mode, as you say.
Is it essentially a technology problem that on a real-time basis you cannot block offensive videos? That somebody would need to study what the videos are, understand the context, and then take a call?
Well, what I would say there are some limitations. That's fair to say. On the other hand, more and more, we're really trying to use technology to actually prevent this type of activity. And I'll give you an example in the context of online safety and in child safety. So for years, Facebook has used photo DNA.
Yes.
This is a photo matching technology to prevent known images of child sexual exploitation online. What that means is that if we have an image, we know about it, we can create a digital fingerprint of that image, what we call a hash. We put that into a data bank. If someone tries to share that image on our platform, we can help prevent it from being shared. What we hadn't had was actually technology for images that we didn't know about. So not known images, but unknown images. We have recently announced the use of a classifier that actually enables us to find images that are not known to us.
And instantly take them down.
And take them down, yes, and remove them, yes.
And this, you're talking about protecting, in one case, children, in this particular instance. But another example of a problem in India is videos which keep coming up. Videos which come up may have been taken down, whether it's on Facebook or on some other social media. They keep coming back up. So, if you just type "girls be aware of love jihad" on Facebook, I just did that again a little while back, and 2 or 3 videos which were offensive came up. This is very clearly meant at inciting hate between the Hindu community and the Muslim community. It results in riots, people lose their lives. So what can you do to actually prevent stuff like this keep coming up over and over?
Well, we use similar hashing technologies for videos as well. To actually, if a video violates our policies, we can use technologies to also prevent videos from.
But what if the user is different who uploads it?
It doesn't matter who the user is. If it violates our policies, we can actually help to prevent those videos from being shared. It's
Ever again. Like if you've decided that this video is dangerous, it needs to go, is there anything that prevents somebody else from uploading that same video using a different name?
So yes, it's not by name. It's actually, it doesn't matter who it is that shares it.
Okay.
That said, the technologies are not perfect. There are ways to manipulate the video or manipulate an image so that it won't get caught by these technologies, and we'll have to create another, digital fingerprint of these technologies, of the video. But these technologies are getting better and better with time, and they are improving. And we are able to get ahead of more of this content over time.
Now, the government of India has warned Facebook that they would treat you as a possible legal abettor to violence if you didn't develop better tools to sort of combat the spread of false information. I think this is more specific to WhatsApp. You've named a couple of tools which help protect people, but in terms of dealing with this concern of fake news and its various manifestations, what have you done since being told by the government that you need to do more?
Well, certainly one of the things that we were talking earlier about with regard to WhatsApp is actually preventing the forwarding of these technologies in a rapid way. So limiting the number of forwards to I think the number maybe five, so that it doesn't go viral in that same way. But it's going to take a combination of things. It's going to take having the right policies in place. It's going to take technologies.
Policies? The government of India's policies?
I think our policies.
Are there lapses here in terms of policy?
I don't know that there are lapses in terms of government policies, although I do think this is an important conversation because I often get asked, is Facebook interested in working on regulation? You only want to get in the way of regulation is often what I hear. And in fact, that's really not the case. We do believe that it takes a multi-stakeholder 360 approach, which means that not only do we have to have policies, but where it makes sense for governments to have policies in place. And we really want to work with governments to help develop effective, smart legislation. I'll give you an example of how we have done that and are working on that. One of the things that we see on our platform, and certainly you see this across social technologies generally, is the non-consensual sharing of intimate images, sometimes used to threaten people, to extort money from them, etc. One of the places that we've focused on in the past and will continue to focus on is really creating legislation that actually creates civil penalties as well as criminal penalties for people who do this, and also for websites that knowingly facilitate this type of activity. We can actually help and work and have done this, and we have in the states some legislation that we've backed at the federal level to do this.
One of the big problems on WhatsApp, and it's something that you have refused to do, is to tell the government of India the source of a potentially libelous or defamatory or dangerous message. Now, obviously, you're doing that to protect the free flow of information because you don't want governments to be snooping around. I mean, I appreciate that. But what about instances of hate? Is this a case of technology actually being potentially dangerous, encryption itself?
So that's a good question. I mean, end-to-end encryption has both pluses and minuses when you're talking in this space. When you have end-to-end encrypted content, we don't know the content. There are things we can do to help with safety in that, and I just mentioned one, the forwarding of things, etc. But there's also protections that come with end-to-end encryption. And one of the things that I had to learn as someone who cares very much about safety when I first got to Facebook is that there are actually places where having end-to-end encryption really protect somebody's safety. And I'll give an example. Journalists. So we know that many times journalists may be traveling around the world. They may be in places where actually they are not in a safe place to report, to share what's happening on the ground, where they may be shut down for their work. And if by having end-to-end encrypted technology.
We couldn't survive as journalists without WhatsApp. It goes without saying. It's a primary form of communication because it's safe. Nobody can snoop on us. And we can share stuff, videos and the like. I appreciate that. But what about instances when you've got people deliberately trying to spread rumors on WhatsApp in a country as vulnerable as India, where you've got the first generation of digital users online? People who get worried that, look, apparently there are individuals who are coming and are trying to kidnap babies. Now, that message went crazy all over the country. People out on picnics got killed. Random people traveling saying, oh, no, look, that's a child kidnapper. They need to be lynched, and they were lynched. That's a big danger. So what can you do beyond the fact that we need Facebook? That's accepted. But what can you do to deal with that?
Well, certainly we have reporting. Second of all, I think you brought up earlier that sometimes this content comes from outside of WhatsApp.
Yeah.
So that's where things like the policies that Facebook has in place can really play a role in trying to limit those things on platforms that are not end-to-end encrypted. So it's a combination of the right policies, the right tools, and also collecting feedback from people, figuring out ways for us to get the kind of contextual information that's needed in order to make important decisions on this type of content.
How often does the government of India come to you and tell you, or police forces in this country, that's something you need to take down?
I don't know the exact number of how often.
Is it
we
often?
We do have a good relationship. We are trying to work with the government. In fact, one of the reasons that I'm here right now is that we work with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They are opening a VPN here in India that will allow them to share the reports of child exploitation with law enforcement so that law enforcement can do the kind of investigations and help to find children, rescue children, and then also follow up and pursue, and then law enforcement can pursue justice. This was really a very important missing link in terms of trying to address the issue of safety. So if we are providing reports to NCMEC, it's important for NCMEC to be able to connect with law enforcement and to connect with the government to actually ensure safety. So developing that full ecosystem is one of the things that we're very focused on in relation to child safety.
But you didn't quite answer my question, and I know you may not have a hard number, but does the government in India come to Facebook and say, we want that off, take that down, take that down? Does that happen often?
So actually we have a report where we actually give this information out to you as well as anybody.
Yeah.
So we have something called our transparency report, and we get government requests all the time to remove particular pieces of content. We report out in this transparency report the number of requests that we received, and also when we've taken that content down. And is it true that
India requests perhaps more than most other countries, if not any other country that, actually
I don't want to answer that because I don't know the exact answer, but you can find that information inside that transparency report and do that comparison.
How tough is the government of India when it comes to telling you that you have to do more, and if you don't, that we might even shut down services? Because they already do shut down services. For example, in Kashmir, as an example, whenever there is violence, messages get spread on WhatsApp. They shut down the entire internet over there, right? And it's insane in today's day and age that you shut down the entire internet in a part of the country. So how strict is the government of India with you? I mean, have they threatened you to shut you down?
So what I'll say is this, is that when we are talking to the governments, and this is around the world, it's not specific to India. Governments have an interest, may have an interest in having particular content taken down. We want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to give people the opportunity to connect on our platform, to build communities, to communicate. And so we have to balance the interests of our community's ability to communicate with whatever those requests are. We have processes in place where they can make those requests, and sometimes we honor them, and sometimes we may not, depending on what the issue is at hand.